didn't even introduce yourself.
I didn't even introduce myself. Wow, I knew going in.
We have to learn how to love kids.
I really learned myself.
85% of our calls are EMS.
And that's not only for police, but, it is for firefighters and 911 telecommunicators.
Our last guest is going to be a great show today.
Mm-hmm.
God said, come as you are, right?
You gotta go down memory lane. Oh, man. No, that was really cool.
Great conversation, you guys. Wow.
You know it feels so good.
Good morning, Joy 1340 AM listeners. We are back in the studio, and I am Officer Ralph McClain with the Milwaukee Police Department, the Office of Community Relations, Engagement, and Recruitment, and I am here with...
My name is Jordan Dickerson. I am one of the recruiters with the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, and we are back with episode 48 of The Conversation.
Yes, sir. It is good to be back in the studio this morning.
It's a cold morning.
A cold morning. But we expect that in the Midwest. That's how we roll in the Midwest. I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm from Chicago. I'm used to the cold.
Do you ever really get used to the cold?
You don't.
No. Okay.
You just kind of tolerate it. Yeah.
Just tolerate it a little bit.
Yeah. I kind of wish that I was, somewhere warm like Miami or somewhere. But, that's the topic.
Speaking into existence.
Right.
That's the topic for some other time. But we are glad to be back in the studio, and thank you to all the listeners that are tuning in and that are always tuning in. We much appreciate you. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, as we usually do, that the Milwaukee Police Department is hiring for those who have ever thought about serving and protecting this great community of ours. So we always have our application posted to the city website, slight always, with the exception of probably about 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it is there, and Jordan is going to give you some information regarding that.
Yep, so if you ever have any questions, you can actually text this number right here. It's 414-519-6190. Again, that's 414-519-6190. Myself and the other recruiter, we actually monitor those text messages that come in. So if you ever have any questions at all about what the process is like, how do I start, just feel free to text that number and we'll get back to you as soon as possible and answer any questions that you have.
And by the time that listeners have heard this broadcast, we will still have a week left for the Police Aid Apprenticeship Program that's out in Milwaukee Police Department. That is for 17-year-olds who are about to graduate this coming year, and they can find out more information about that at the City of Milwaukee website.
You can find out about that at the website. Also, again, text that number as well, and again, we'll provide you with information to help you, lead you in that right direction, so you can see if that's something that you actually want to do. And also, we gotta say Happy Thanksgiving to the listeners out there, because by the time they listen to this, it'll probably be past, but still, just like a nice little Thanksgiving episode.
That's right. You plan on cooking?
I ain't cooking. My mom's cooking. My mom's cooking.
You're doing all the eating.
Right. I might bring some meatballs or something like that. Something simple, but
not meatballs.
Listen, it's something.
Dressing, macaroni and cheese.
See, you're gonna get mad at me if I bring something like that. It ain't what it's supposed to be like. You can't mess up the dressing. You can't mess up the mac and cheese. Mm-hmm.
You want to be invited back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I want to still be in the family.
You gotta practice.
I know. I think my mac and cheese is decent, but dressing, I don't know. That's a different level. I love dressing, so I'm like, I just gotta leave that to the professionals.
There's nothing like good dressing.
There's nothing like good dressing.
Yeah. So
and dressing, not stuffing.
Not stuffing.
No.
Don't use good time.
Y'all gonna get our listeners mad now.
I know some listeners gonna be like, I like stuff. Well, we are glad to be back in the studio, and then in the studio with us we have Dr. Lakia Jones-Spell. Dr. Jones-Spell is a distinguished mental health professional and entrepreneur, author, and community advocate with over 2 decades of experience.
That makes me feel old.
She's a Milwaukee native, and she holds doctorate degrees in psychology and social work, and is a licensed psychotherapist, clinical substance abuse counselor, and a certified trauma professional. In 2006, she founded AMRI Counseling Services, a multi-location clinic offering comprehensive and mental health substance abuse treatment and family support services, and later established a nonprofit to provide care for underserved populations as well. She's passionate advocate for mental health awareness. Dr. Jones-Spell also mentors future professionals through robust internship programs, which is much needed in our community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And teaches at the collegiate level. She is the author of You Are It, a guide to personal transformation, and is a successful real estate investor as well. Her work reflects her dedication to improving emotional, mental, financial, and spiritual well-being within her community and beyond. We would like to welcome to our show, The Conversation, Dr. Lakia Jones-Spell.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you for that.
Yes, yes.
I think he added a little more in that bio. Like, who is that?
I do.
I have to ask you. So, with all of those hats, and all
Yeah.
of those titles,
Yeah.
and everything, which would you say is, I don't say the most, but which speaks to you, like just real on a deep level of all of those roles or things that you have done when it comes to, helping our community?
Well, I think, mental health is so important to me.
Okay.
And although I'm very blessed and excited to, first of all, be here, be before both of you and talking about, what I've been able to accomplish. But I think most of all would be, being able to be a professional in the field of mental health and substance use. Because of the need, it's just such a great need. I've seen, mental health issues and alcohol, drug related issues in my family, in the communities I've been raised in. And, it just continues to be a growing matter and a growing issue. And so I think that is one of the things that I'm most proud of, and to be able to extend that to, actually having my own clinic, it allowed me to be able to really do some things that, I felt, and some of our team, therapists felt that it was important to do in the community within mental health and substance use. So I would say that is one of the most important pieces that I've done. Of course, I love the fact that I wrote a book and did all these other things, and they kind of go hand in hand too. They all are interchanged in some way. But the need for mental health providers is so strong, today more than ever. So I would say that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I feel like a big part of what we do on this radio show is we do talk about a lot about mental health.
Yes.
And again, it's just because it's just so important. Growing up, it's not something that we often talk about, but as you get older, you start to understand like the wears and tears of things. I was actually talking with my mom the other day, and I was telling her, we were going, just always reflecting back on, just where kind of God has brought me, right? And one of the things, I'm like thinking about some of the traumas that I've gone through as a child. And we were having a conversation, and she was like, do you think that a trauma that you experienced when you were young kind of played a part in, some of the mental battles that I faced growing up, dealing with depression, anxiety, paranoia, like all these different things. And like, I had to take a second and think, like, because at first I'm just like, nah, like it didn't really like play a factor at all. But it's like when you really dig deeper into it, you have to realize that like a lot of the things that you go through actually do play a part in some of like the mental health battles that you face when you get older.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, we are a product of where we came from, and our experiences, and our learned behaviors and all of that. And so we stand today because of what we've experienced, whether it was good or bad, right? Regardless of how it has shown up in our life today, we can't ignore the fact that these things happened to us as we were children or teens or young adults. And like I said, good or bad, because we have different experiences, but they do shape us into who we are.
Absolutely. And then one thing I want to touch on too is, as we talk about like mental health, and you said it before, because I did a little bit of research and I like kind of check out some of the stuff that you said, and you mentioned how like it's not just a battle for the person, but it's a battle for the people around them too,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And as you growing up, was that something that you seen in your family, people dealing with mental health issues or even like substance abuse? Was that something that you've seen a lot?
Absolutely. So first of all, I got to put it out there.
Yeah.
I grew up on 7th and Burleigh.
Okay, you grew up in a zoo.
I grew up in the hood, the hood of the hoods. And I'm going to tell you, there was a lot. I saw a lot. And I know there's many people out there that could probably understand what I saw. But I saw a lot, a lot of violence.
Yeah.
broken homes, right? And so there was a lot that I was exposed to. My mom was a single mom, did an excellent job raising us as a single mom.
Shout out to moms.
Shout out to moms.
No
She
doubt.
would be here right now too.
No
She was on her way, y'all. I said, Mom, we about to get started. You might not want to come. So, but yeah, I saw a lot growing up, and but I wouldn't change my experiences because again, I think those experiences made me stronger
Absolutely.
today. But yeah, I saw a lot of mental health issues, a lot of substance use. Like I said, not just in my family, but just in the community I grew up in, and I see it now. So a part of that is the reason why I started to think about being in this field very early on. I originally wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
An elementary education teacher. I'm gonna tell y'all, they put me in the classroom.
You was like, this ain't it.
Yeah, I was like, this ain't it for me. I said, I got to go. They put me in the classroom, them kids ran me out of there. I said, I can't do this 8 hours a day.
Oh, my goodness.
Shout out to all of the elementary education
No
teachers.
doubt.
Because we need them.
Every time I go into that environment, I say, boy, these people,
It's a challenge.
it is a challenge.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
But go ahead, you could not do it, and so then, at that point, you said,
changed my major.
You changed your major, okay.
Absolutely. I said, this is not for me. And so, I thought of what else could I do to really help people, because I really wanted to make sure I was in the field, a helping profession field. And I remember I went to school in Whitewater.
Hey, I went there.
You went to Whitewater? Okay.
Graduated in 2016.
2016?
Yep.
Okay, I'll tell you when
No,
I
that's cool.
graduated.
That's okay.
Why you
I
gotta
was
say,
long gone in 2016.
why you got to say you graduated in 2016?
I thought that was gonna make
to
me.
make them seem younger than me.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
anyway, Warhawks, shout out to the
Right.
Warhawks. But I went to Whitewater and they said, have you ever thought about psychology? And I didn't know much about psychology. And I don't think I related psychology to mental health and, helping the community. But I said, put me in whatever's going to get me out of here in time, because I don't want to be here too much longer. At this point, I'm, I think, 2 years in, right? But I said, I think psychology could be something I could think about it. So it wasn't something I had dreamed
Got you.
about being a therapist, right? But God.
But God.
But God. He knew exactly, which path he wanted me to take. And that's exactly what happened. So I changed my major to psychology and been loving this field ever since.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. So I love, and psychology is such an interesting field to me. How much, so we talked about trauma and past experiences that are external. And I always wondered this, right? How much is it that's innate with us and our natural personalities as far as how we deal with things? And how much is external with experiences? How much, outside? Because you often see people who grow up in situations that were, traumatic or trauma-filled or toxic situations, and then somehow they have that resiliency and they'll break through. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, what was it? Was it a poem by Tupac or whatever? It was talked about the roads through the concrete, or the roads through that's coming up through the concrete. So that resiliency of something that may be, toxic or whatever, you kind of
still
come
rise
out
through
of it.
it.
You still rise through it.
Exactly.
How much is that innate, or how much is our experience is the sum total of what we do each and every day? Would you think?
Well, I think it's a combination
It's
of
a
both,
combination.
right? So there's an exact number to say, but I would say that you're absolutely right. That there are some things that, again, are hereditary, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There are some things that are learned behaviors early on.
That part. Yeah.
And then there are some things as you get older, you learn behaviors, but you're a little bit more in control
Right.
of what you decide to adapt in your life or not adapt. So when you're younger, right, so let's go back to the hereditary, right? There are some things that naturally are hereditary, right? So, for example, when we do assessments for clients, we will ask, is there a history of schizophrenia? Is there a history of depression? Because what research shows is that there are some diagnoses where there could be found hereditary, more or less, learned behaviors, okay? But yes, we see things, right? It's around us every day, and it's hard to not learn what you've been taught your whole life, right? Which makes it harder for us as we get adults to be able to say, this is not healthy, this is not good, I need to change my life, or I need to move in a different direction. And then as you get older again, it becomes, what are the things I can control and what are the things I can't control, right? So there isn't a perfect answer to your question. It is, there are some things that we find that are hereditary and that it affects a lot of those individuals in particular families. And then there's those who have had certain experiences, certain traumas that affect them and affect who they are today.
That's good. That's real good because, I mean, you can always it's always nice to look at it from a personal lens as well too. Like just look at your situation and look kind of how you grew up. Like even for me, like of course, like drinking was a big part of family events and everything like that. Like I was a part of a family who always like drank. Not saying that everybody in there is an alcoholic, but it's like from a young age, that's what you experience. And sometimes, you'll get around friend groups and y'all over there talking about, oh, well, I had my first drink at 14 years old and I had my first drink at, but it's like, we talk about these things, but those things aren't normal and those things shouldn't be normalized. And, I think it's so important for us in general as a society to start to understand the importance of having a healthy home. Because a lot of the things that you're taught and a lot of things that you go through, like you said, it comes from, your environment as well. So if I'm constantly around a situation in an environment where, alcohol is being glorified and, the person, the drunk uncle who, hey, he's having so much fun, let's glorify this person, then I'm going to grow up thinking that, what? I gotta be the life of the party. In order for me to be the life of the party, let me go over there and drink and go crazy and everything like that. But it's not until that you experience life and you start to understand, like, oh yeah, this maybe isn't the best thing. But now it's up to you to put in that work to dive deep into yourself and like, all right, I actually need to put in the work, not just for myself, but that way I can provide a better future for my kids and my family and my generation after that.
There you go. That you hit something really key, and that is being able to make a decision for yourself, regardless of the environment you grew up in, regardless of people around you. You have to decide if you're going to be a leader or follower.
Right.
That's true.
So there is no in between. You're either going to be a follower or you're going to be a leader. And that's one of the things that I decided to do is be a leader. Yeah. I wanted to paint the picture of what life will look like for myself. As far as growing up in the hood, I don't mind. I didn't mind that. Yeah. But I also knew that also painted a picture of what do I want my life to look like in the future. And there was things I said, no, right. I don't want this for me, or I want to have a better living, right? And so I knew that it was important for me to take a different route, right, and be a leader in my life more than a follower. And the same thing, like you said, with mental health issues, alcohol, drug related issues. Not saying I've never had a drink, or anything like that, but everything is all about making the right decisions. We're not saying you can't drink. Right. We're saying do it responsibly.
Exactly.
We're saying do it in a way where it's not causing addictions, it's not taking over your life, right? It's not being a negative, turn out to be negative consequences, in the decisions that you make. And so that's what's most important. And I tell clients that all the time. We're not saying you can't have a drink. We're saying now what you're doing is you're utilizing alcohol to, mask and cope with different issues that you have going on in your life. And that's not healthy.
Absolutely.
And the same thing could be said like with people who overconsumption of social media.
Absolutely.
We're not, it's not saying that that's bad in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's just that is it a distraction from you really going inward to find out what are those things that you need to probably heal.
Right.
Right. And it's a distraction for that.
Yeah, we got to be careful with social media.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing I tell myself a lot. Like it's crazy because you can actually feel like, or for me personally, I can feel when I'm consuming it too much, and it's like it really starts to play in your mental, and it may not even show up in a huge way, but it's like you'll just go through your day and like you just won't feel the same for some reason. It's like, all right, well, let me go back. How much time did I spend on social media today? So
it's a lot. You have to. That's a part of self-care.
Yeah.
You have to take time out of social media. You got to be careful about, what. And again, that's something that we can control. Yeah. Right? You can block a person as being negative on social media, or maybe block content that's affecting you mentally. Right? That's a choice. And I think a lot of people say, well, the world is full of these things, or all the negativity, but be honest with you, my social media is kind of full of positivity.
The algorithm.
It's, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's the people you choose to be friends with.
Absolutely.
It's the content you choose to
content.
watch.
Yeah.
You know, it's deciding to block what doesn't serve you
Yeah.
well. And so it is a choice. And as you get older,
Absolutely.
you start to understand that, you know, you have total control of your life and, you know, you have to make the best choices for yourself.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
intentionality of it, you know, because I tend to like it because I love YouTube.
Yeah.
But I tend to watch like content that's about, you know, the growth of the human spirit. You know,
Yeah.
how you can show up as the best
Your
person
best
that
self,
you be, your
yeah.
best self. So I love that, but I don't want to get to love it so much now. If I'm out to dinner with my wife and my daughter, and I'm, you know what I'm saying, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, I remember this, or I get it, you know, I subscribe to some channel, and the notification pops up, and I'm at the dinner
And now
table,
you're
I'm supposed to
trying
have
to-
the conversation,
Yeah.
and now, so it's that intentionality also to make sure that I'm making time for those who are around
And
me,
being present.
and to be
Being
present,
present.
you
Yeah.
know, that part of it. So, Dr. Jones Spell, you mentioned about that even at one time you thought about being a middle school teacher. All right. Who was influential when you were coming up, when you were younger, when you were in school?
Oh, that's a good question.
That because of all the other things that were going on that you mentioned, but were there people in your life that you know that made sure that you stayed the course to want to experience something better?
Yeah, that's a good question. So early on, I can't think of anybody really early on in my career, right? So when I decided to make that switch, that was kind of a, you know, there wasn't anybody saying you should be a therapist or you should switch to psychology. But I did have some amazing teachers growing up. You know, I had some amazing teachers, and those teachers did influence me to, whether they knew it or not, they influenced me to want to be a teacher. You know, and so that's why I decided to want to be a teacher very early on. And my minor was dance, so I love to dance, and so I minored in dance, and so those were my influences. Now, as I started to grow in the psychology realm and the mental health field, then I have a plethora of people that encourage me. Dr. Merlene Jenkins is one of them. She has, you know, moved on with the Lord at this point, but she was just not only brilliant and smart and amazing and beautiful and everything you could think of, right? She held every accolade and every, you know, degree and, you know, every license behind her name. And I said, oh man, I want to be like her. I remember she used to sign her name and it would say, Dr. Merlene Jenkins, PhD, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it would almost roll off the paper. And I was like, I want to be like her, you know? And so
Well,
she...
from my introduction, mission accomplished.
Right.
Exactly. So she was amazing. But I did have a number of people that have been influences, you know, in my life, and I'm just thankful. And you know, and of course, give all praises to God, right? We have to start there, because had He not, you know, put these people in my life, you know, you never know where you would be.
Yeah.
Right? And I think they were just amazing influences and helped me in this field. And Dr. Jenkins, she actually was one of my college instructors.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And when I started the clinic, she said to me, I heard you started a clinic. I said, I did, Dr. Jenkins. She said, you know I'm going to come over there and work over there with you, right? When she was ready to kind of retire from teaching. And she did. She was one of my clinical supervisors. And I just miss her dearly. But I definitely had some great people in my life. And I think, you know, strong mentors are really important and will help you, you know, through your journey. And that's really important. So if you don't have a mentor, find someone who is like-minded. You know, find someone who can feed positivity into you, and you can feed positivity into them, and they can be a blessing to you, because that's really important.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you obviously, like, you have a lot on your track record. Like you accomplish a lot, and that comes with like a lot of
Thank
wisdom.
God.
Yeah, and like you need wisdom to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was like kind of reading Proverbs today, and it talks about, you know, just seeking wisdom in general. And
Yeah.
it seems like you're a person who genuinely do seek wisdom and understanding.
I do.
And
Yeah.
I think that it's a blessing that you were able to get that wisdom, or you're able to seek that knowledge, right? And then now God gave you the wisdom to be able to pretty much implement it in a way that helps people. I want to ask this question about just being an advocate in general, for the people out there, because I think sometimes, you know, you can see somebody in your family who may be dealing with mental health issues. They could be battling, you know, substance abuse and everything. And sometimes it's hard to be that advocate for them and show them support, right? And because sometimes they might not even necessarily want that support from you. What advice would you give to somebody who is currently in a situation right now where they see a loved one dealing with a lot of different things? They see a loved one dealing with mental health. They see a loved one struggling with substance abuse. What advice do you give them to help them just be that advocate, to be that support during this time of struggle?
Well, I would say first, you know, allow some grace. Allow some grace. I think understanding mental health issues is extremely important. You know, we run into a lot of situations and we expect folks that might have mental health issues or severe mental health issues, and we think that they're supposed to know to do certain things or to act a certain way or to respond in a certain way, and that might not necessarily be the case. So one, I would say educate yourself on mental health issues, especially if you know what your particular family member or loved one diagnosis might be. You know, we don't like to put labels on people, but diagnoses do truly guide us as far as understanding what someone might be experiencing. And so it's good if you can know that, you can educate yourself on how to go about communicating and helping those who might be experiencing some kind of mental health need. And so I would say, you know, have some grace. The other thing is, you know, in order to get help or to help your family, they have to want to be helped.
Exactly.
You know, and they have to want to be helped. And I think, you know, really understanding that you can do all you can, but some people just aren't ready, right? And so, you know, just, again, having that grace, you know, giving them resources, giving them information to counseling, you know, giving them information to crisis lines, that kind of thing. Being there to support them and to kind of feed them that information, but don't get upset. You know, don't get angry, don't get in your feelings, don't take it personal when they don't decide to make change right now. You know, change is a process, and it also has to be a decision.
And
So
and
good.
it's easy to get upset, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's
You take it
family
personal.
or somebody you care for.
Absolutely.
And you're like, man, why are they just, and like you said, if they're just not ready for that at the time, you know, doesn't mean you don't continue to keep, like I said, give them resources and support. But
That's true. And
Be there for them and guide them, you know, guide them as much as you possibly can.
Right.
You know, do what you can, but then understand that it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, you know, mental health is not something you can just change, you know, it's not something you can just change overnight, right? It's a process that you have to go through. And I think the other piece is that we also have to understand that the mind of each individual is wired a little differently. Right?
Yes.
It's wired a little differently, okay? And so our brain is made up all of these different, you know, these different things.
Yes.
And what we need to understand is that some things could be more, you know, psychologically related, but some things could be medically, right? Could be medical related. And so we want to just make sure that we understand what people are experiencing. And then, you know, and just, again, do your research, you know, because a lot of times we think, oh, well, we know everything. And you'd be surprised what you know. And so, you know, just want to make sure that you are aware and that you are fully educated before, you know, trying to make decisions on behalf of someone who might be dealing with some mental health issues.
I love that. Just the aspect of grace in general, because like I said, it's easy to be like, man, come on, like I'm trying to help you out, like just do it. But it's like, no, just maybe that person at this moment just needs you to be there for them and be a listening ear to them. And again, it's hard because, you know, I feel like it's sometimes, especially when it's somebody that we love and it's our family, we're so it's so easy to get triggered by that. But and we don't even show them the same grace that we would show a stranger who we know is dealing with the same thing. But yeah, we'll show that stranger that grace because, you know, it's a little bit different. But when it's your family, you just always have that passion to it, and you're so connected. So that's really good.
You know what? You know what I'm already going to say. With Dr. Jones' spill, we should have made this kind of like a special hour episode.
Yeah. Did the time go by already?
It's over with.
But this is the thing. I mean, just well, first of all, thank you for taking time out your
Absolutely.
schedule.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you. But there's so many things I wanted to get into.
Yeah, we got to do this
So many
again.
other questions. But I do want to ask this, since we're coming up to the Thanksgiving holiday here, and oftentimes Jordan and I have what we call the question of the day. I do have a question for you.
All right.
So if you were sitting down having Thanksgiving meal, and you can have 3 people at that table with you, history or even present?
Ooh, don't do it to me.
Who would that be?
Oh my God. I cannot answer that. Oh my God. Who would that be?
Who would that be?
My grandmother
Okay, that's one.
would be
That's
one.
good. That's good.
My grandmother be one. Let's see. This is a hard one, y'all. This is a hard. You didn't tell me you was gonna ask me this question.
He already throw that curveball. Made it
That's a
audible.
curveball. You know, God, I can't. I don't know if I could answer this.
What was your grandmother's name?
Mildred Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, I miss her so much.
Mhm.
But she walks with me every single day.
No doubt.
Every single day.
No doubt.
But definitely her. You said living or not living?
Mhm.
Oh, my mom.
Mhm.
My mom, she's such a blessing.
That's
And she's alive. If you come to AMRI counseling, y'all, she the one that greets you at the door. So she is a greeter. My mom, for sure. And then, that's hard. I think I'm going to say my cousin.
Mhm.
My cousin, her name is LaQuanda. We called her Tweety.
Mhm.
But she was my closest cousin to me. She was only about 6 months apart in age, and she's passed on too. So I would say here. There's a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
shout out to my husband and everybody
Right.
else too. You know, there's a lot. That's why this is a hard question.
You
to
didn't
answer.
pick me?
You didn't pick me.
What?
You know, I got aunties and you know my friends. But really, you know, the folks that kind of move on,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? And you only got one mom.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Right,
That's
so
correct.
that's a definite. And then you know those folks that move on is just you just wish that you could just have one more opportunity,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
To sit at that table and enjoy food or to have a conversation. So
Mhm.
that's my final answer.
That's great.
That is great.
I do want to give you an opportunity. If people
Yeah.
want to reach out to you, connect with you, where can they find
Absolutely.
you at?
Okay. All right, y'all. So, AMRI Counseling Services. We're located at 4001 West Capitol Drive in Milwaukee. We also have a location in Kenosha, 6321 23rd Avenue. And then our new location in Miami, Florida. So if you're ever in the Miami area, come down and visit us. I don't know that address by heart. You got to look it up on the website. But our website is www.amricounseling.com. But yeah, come out, you know, reach out to us. And if you need services or you have family members that might need service or just need someone to talk to, we're there. That's probably the best way to reach us. And then I'll give you the phone number too, just in case, 414-455-3879. Again, AMRI Counseling.
All right.
Again,
Awesome.
thank you for having me.
No, thank you
Lakia
for-
Jones-Field, thank you again, and we appreciate you and appreciate what you do. For
Thank you so much.
the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
God bless us.
All right,
Talk
listeners.
to you.
God bless.
God bless.